I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Here we go. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. It is a Tuesday edition. Welcome in, kiddos. We're with you here for the next 90 minutes here on the Daily Puck Drop. Your daily sports podcast coming up on a Tuesday. Our guest featured Jim Duquette, MLB Network Radio, will join us to talk Mariners baseball, the playoffs, all things baseball as the season is winding down. Danny Kelly from The Ringer as we get into the NFL, the Seahawks fantasy football with Danny Kelly. Then we turn our attention to college football with John Canzano from johncanzano.com, and we wrap up every single daily puck drop with Hey, What the Puck. We are inside the world-renowned Limback Lumber Studios. Contractors, they offer free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner do-it-yourself projects. They've got the largest stock moldings in the Northwest. They've got old school service. They've been doing it since 1930. Give Limback Lumber a call at 206-782-3487. and visit them at limbacklumber.com. Follow me on the social media platforms. If you don't know, Puck Sports on X and Blue Sky and Instagram, Puck_sports on TikTok. And you can visit me and find everything, including information to sign up to become a Pucks Posse member. You're like, well, what's that? Well, that gives you access to everything that we do here. Access to all the free content, plus we give you bonus shows every single week. More information at pucksports.com. All right. Before we talk to Jim Duquette of Major League Baseball and MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM, we'll get to the Mariners. Mariners playoff picture is clearing up for them right now, and it is without a doubt. They are embarking on the most important road trip of the season as they start a 6-game trip tonight, 3 in Kansas City, then 3 in Houston. They're 82-68, half game up on Houston. Houston won last night against the Texas Rangers. News not all good, though, for the Rangers. Yordan Alvarez, if you see in the highlight, was coming home on a play, hit home plate. His foot, it's bad. He did an awkward kind of slide, and his foot slipped out, and he rolled his ankle. Looked like he rolled his ankle twice there for Yordan Alvarez. He was seen in the locker room, left the locker room last night of the clubhouse in a walking boot and on crutches. He is scheduled to have an MRI today to undergo the severity or learn the severity of his injuries. And so we'll wait and see there. They haven't played with them all year long. They're still hanging around. They're only half game out, so they're used to not playing with Yordan Alvarez. But obviously, a team that has gone through just a number of injuries. You forget how many they've gone through. At one point, I think in July, they had 18 different players that were on the IR. They've lost 3 starting pitchers this year to season-ending injuries. Eric Getty's now not going to pitch again this year. Josh Hader's not going to pitch again in the regular season. And still are only just right there to win yet another division. They've got 2 more games with the Rangers. Meanwhile, as I mentioned before, Seattle will start a 3-game series with the Royals tonight, and then they go 3 games there in Houston. Royals currently 6.5 games back there in the wild card again, so they're kind of out of it. But, I mean, still somewhat hopeful. They've got to probably sweep the Mariners. Logan Gilbert gets the start tonight. Michael Wacha will be making his first start since being on the IR there with a concussion. Can Gilbert, and the key for him, and the key for all these starters as they start this road trip, can they just be effective on the road? Gilbert's ERA, like everyone on this staff, minus Wu, their ERA is terrible on the road. He's at a 5.29, so we'll wait and see. It'd be interesting to see how they can adjust to pitching on the road. And Bill Kruger, who was on the shows Mondays, just said that's what it's going to come down to. It's not a hard thing to decipher why they don't play well on the road. It has nothing to do with the offense. It's easier for them on the road opposed to home. It is all about their starting pitching. Can they work deep into games? Can they get at least 6 innings more so they can keep themselves within the game and not, after 2 innings, 3 innings, find themselves down in a hole? And that has been the interesting part about this season for the Mariners is that what has at times, well, not at times, what has let them down on the road has been their starting pitching. The starting pitching has been so up and down and inconsistent this year, which is odd because we're so accustomed to them being so good home and away. They've always had better numbers at home, but never this type of split. So without a doubt, the most important road trip that they have ever gone on in this organization's history. And it starts this afternoon in Kansas City. And again, a lineup that's going to throw a bunch of left-handers at you. How do they weave through that? They have struggled this year against these starters. So let's just kind of keep in mind and keep an eye on how Logan Gilbert will move through this lineup here tonight against Kansas City. And then bear worth watching to that injury situation with Yordan Alvarez and Houston. I mean, again, as we mentioned before, they've been able to play this entire season without him. So they have, in essence, weathered that storm, but not having him is not good. I don't know if anyone else caught this on ESPN, but ESPN did a story where Baseball Playoff Anonymous takes from 19 people who are associated with baseball. It's GMs, coaches, and players. And they just asked them for their predictions on who are the best teams in the American League and the NL. And as they were going through the American League, they were just talking about who's the team to beat right now. And they came up the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are the team to beat. They received 6 votes. Behind them were the Tigers, then there was Yankees, Red Sox, and then the Astros. So they had said these 19 people, again, made up of players, execs, and coaches around baseball, and said the Tigers are the biggest threat to the Blue Jays. Now, when you scroll down to the article, they talked about who's everyone's sleeper, and it was unanimous. The Mariners were unanimously chosen as the sleeper here in October. And I want to read you some of the quotes from these executives and the players. One American League player said, quote, "A team that can really get hot that isn't playing its best baseball is Seattle. The pitching staff is legit. Cal has hit 50 home runs, but they've got other guys that are built for that moment. The spotlight moment. Randy Arozarena and Suarez are 2 of them. They're built to win late." An NL player, it's one of those lineups where everyone is waiting for them to put it all together. The rotation is very talented, and they have one of the best closers in the league. I think they're one of those teams that if they get hot at the right time, no one can beat them. That is a National League player. An executive for the American League says Seattle is one of its best teams we've seen there in years. If there is a real sleeper in this entire playoff field, it's the Seattle Mariners. And another American League executive saying, Seattle is my surprise team. I think a bad year for pitching in Seattle could get flipped on its head in the postseason with their starters picking it up. So everyone, for the most part, players and executives, pulling for your Seattle Mariners to be the sleeper pick there in the American League. And they're not wrong when they get everything all together, which they have not had this year. When that lineup all clicks and they're rolling at the same time, it is a very talented and deep lineup that can do damage in many, many ways. It can slug, it can hit doubles, it can hit for power, it can draw walks, it can do a lot of damage. And then you couple that with a rotation that I think especially in that homestand, shown signs of getting a lot better. Now they've got to show it on the road, and it starts tonight with Gilbert, and we got to see what Miller does on the road there as well. But listening to those people talk about how the Mariners are the surprise pick there and the sleeper team on the American League. Should get a lot of people very, very excited. We'll ask Jim Duquette of MLB Network Radio and Sirius XM about that. But before we talk to Jim, as he joins us every single Tuesday, it's all brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. Go visit flatstickpub.com. If it's fun you desire, it's fun you're going to get at Flat Stick Pub. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's date night, guys night, ladies night, or large group event, Flat Stick Pub's got you covered. They have 6 great locations across the Pacific Northwest, from Pioneer Square to Kirkland, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. All locations offer the best pub experience in Washington. 2 rules at Flat Stick Pub: drink local and have fun. Pretty simple. So if you like to have fun, love local beer, and great tasting food, make Flat Stick Pub your next spot. Visit them at flatstickpub.com. And we talk a little baseball now with Jim Duquette from MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM Channel 89. You can follow him on social media, Jim Duquette GM, host of the Power Alley, airing daily, and the Front Office with Jim Bowden on Sundays. He's all brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. You want a great spot to go for a large group event, Flat Stick Pub, and go visit them at flatstickpub.com. Jim, I want to start off with, I don't know if you saw it. I was just talking about it. It was an article that came out on ESPN.com, and they anonymously talked to 19 people around baseball, players, executives, and some coaches, and they just asked them, hey, give me some of your teams to beat in both leagues, and then also who's your sleeper team, and everyone agreed that the Mariners are the sleeper team right now to win the whole thing. It's been a hell of a turn, but yeah, Jim, when they do put everything all together, they are one of the most dangerous teams in baseball.
I think that you're seeing that obviously during the last home stretch, in the last 2 games against the Braves, and I'm not going to take away from it, because winning 9 in a row is not easy to do. All the games on the homestand, they had some Angels in there too, and we know where the Angels are going to end up below 500 again. But still, we talked about this last week, and I went through the exercise. And I did it with Jim Bowden, who you referenced. He's a former GM too. He's been a GM. He was a GM for 18 years in the big leagues. We both felt the same way. The 2 best teams roster-wise in the American League are the Mariners and the Yankees. And that's so it's hard to be a sleeper in that sense. I understand why people feel that way as a sleeper, just because a lot of things that we've talked to over the years. Hey, the Mariners haven't been in this position before. They folded down the stretch, like all those things. But this is a different team. And it's way more balanced. It's definitely better. They're trending. They're going in they're ascended at this time of the year versus last year when they were taking on water, and the second half was a struggle. What we've seen, over the last couple seasons. So I think they're going to be one of the teams to beat. And even though they, and again, we'll see how the rest of the AL West goes. But I mean, I've seen a lot of Houston here recently, and I saw Texas over the weekend. And Texas has been playing well too, but Seattle's roster is better than both of theirs.
How can Houston pull this off? I mean, I've never seen a team sustain this many injuries, but still, as we have, a couple weeks left in the season, they find themselves just a half game out.
I had their GM on, Dana Brown, on my show on yesterday, or 2 days ago. And, they, like you said, they've been able to overcome it. I'm not sure how they've been able to do it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's like the injuries, and then just having Yordan Alvarez get injured again yesterday, twisting his ankle. And man, I mean, it did not sound good. It didn't look good. He left the ballpark in crutches and in a boot. So, and I think that, to me, like, they have that weakness where I'm not sure their offense is deep enough. You have some, questionable injuries, like the Luis Garcia injury that they just had. It looked like the rotation was coming together. Then it starts to, fall apart again with the injury. Their bullpen still doesn't have Josh Hader back. It sounds like Hader is going to be like maybe not till the end of the season. The one thing that Dana Brown mentioned to me was, they have Itzhak Paredes on the injured list, and he's been an important part of their back, because he's like, they're a really aggressive offense. He sees a lot of pitches. He looks like he's coming back maybe against the Mariners this series coming up. So they are going to get a little bit of a reinforcement here in the short term.
Okay. If you're Seattle, you've got and again, I brought this up with Bill Kruger on Monday. This is more always kind of, I feel like, a football a thing, but if you're Seattle, how do you guard against not looking past Kansas City?
It's hard not to, but I think, with where they've come from, to get to this point in that struggle, I feel like it's, fairly, um, understanding and fairly easy task. It sounds easy, but it's just like, hey, let's focus on winning today, and that's where you kind of rely on your veteran leadership and some of the chemistry that you have in that clubhouse, and some of the guys who get after it on a daily basis. I think you rely on that, where other teams at this time of the year are have been struggling, not playing well. The Mariners, they've got that momentum. Do they have to answer some questions about playing on the road, like you were talking about just before I came out? Of course, those last two road trips on the East Coast were not pretty, but I think that Kansas City right now is barely hanging on. So even though, like, you can kind of say, well, the timing of playing them right now is pretty good. Before Houston, and then when you come back and play Colorado, like, in the way the Mariners have been playing at home, like, you want to make that last weekend against the Dodgers as meaningless as you can.
Yeah. Well, the Dodgers are not helping out by not at this point putting away the Padres, because it feels like that series, as we fast forward, is going to be important for them as well.
Well, yeah, it definitely is. They've been very inconsistent themselves, and so the Padres. The Padres have a tough series coming up against the Mets starting tonight. Dodgers pulled out 2 of 3 from the Giants, but the Phillies. They obviously have beaten them there. It's a tough series there. So, I mean, the final 11, 12 games, whatever you have left at this point, you're kind of in that home stretch. You shouldn't have any letdowns, and I think that with the Dodgers, they've been, despite their record, which is still pretty good, they've been fairly inconsistent on their season overall. And a lot of that's having to do with injuries too.
Who is right now, when you look at the team with you talked about the American League, the Yankees and the Mariners, overall, the roster that has the least amount of flaws? Is it still those two, or who from the National League?
Well, let's start in the National League. I mean, in terms of like injuries or some of the health related type things, the Dodgers are starting to get healthy. What they're experiencing right now is in the relief corps some real bad inconsistencies with those high priced guys, but their starters are healthy. They've got on the offensive side, Max Muncy is back and playing well, and they have Tommy Edman back. So they're about as healthy as I've seen all season long. The Phillies are the ones that they just keep winning. They have Wheeler out for the year, probably definitely out for the year, and then Trey Turner out at least till the end of the season. So that's kind of bears watching as you get closer to the postseason. Milwaukee's fairly healthy. They have a couple of relievers injured. But it's not anything that they can't overcome. The Cubs with Kyle Tucker, that's one that is a pretty major one, but they're getting into the postseason. I feel like of the teams that are still kind of in the mix, like the Mets are healthy. Their problem is their starting pitching is abominable, and their offense, which was great in August, is falling asleep. So I think of the weaker rosters. There's impact on the Phillies right now that are out. I think they're going to get Turner back, and Kyle Tucker with the Cubs, but it's not going to affect them getting to the postseason. If he's still injured, it will affect him in the postseason.
It'd be a hell of a story if Arizona, despite selling at the deadline, would somehow squeeze into the playoffs. I mean, they're only a game and a half back of your Mets.
They're an incredible story, and so are the Giants. The Giants were sellers at the trade deadline too. They were 70 games under in the third week of August. So those two teams in particular, and the Diamondbacks here more recently, are tough. The Giants were playing well until they lost the last 3. I had Bob Melvin on my show today, the manager there, and he was like, our offense has been up and down the entire season. And that's how they've kind of played. And it shows in the record, right? They're sitting there at 500. Arizona being a game over right now. If you and I went through their bullpen, could you name 3 relievers? I had a hard time with it. And I mean they're marching out there a bunch of no names, and they've pitched fairly well, surprisingly well, despite some of the moves and some of the injuries that they've had. And I think that's their biggest weakness.
Is there a common denominator here in the last few years of what brings success in the postseason? Like what do you look at that determines the overall success once the playoffs start?
Yeah. So I'll say this: the things that aren't necessarily haven't been a factor that I've studied this over even the last 15 years is how well you're playing, either good or bad, when you get to the postseason. That hasn't been a factor at all. There have been teams that have played well that have been bounced in the first round. Teams that haven't played well that have won the whole thing. So like that doesn't seem to be any real relevance. But some of the things, some of the components of your roster, power pitching, both starters and relievers. So if you have a high strikeouts, that helps. You got to have some balance in the offense, but hitting the long ball, hitting home runs, most of the runs that are scored in the postseason are related to hitting a home run rather than being able to piece together like 3 hits in a row. So those are some of the things. It doesn't mean you can't win the other way, but it's a little bit harder because you're facing everybody's best pitching because all of the off days, guys are rested, more rested, and there's no like limitations anymore, right? So the relievers, if you pitch them 4 straight days or every game in the postseason, they have already built-in off days, so it's not as much of a factor.
Well, it's good news for the M's. I mean, they're third in home runs in the league behind the Yankees, who lead baseball with 254, Dodgers at 220. Then it's your Mariners at 216, and then you bring up the pitching and the strikeouts. Now, one thing that they don't necessarily have, well, other than Brash and Munoz, these strikeout flamethrowers that are down in the bullpen like they once had. But what they do have is something that frankly, Jim, and you know this, that teams don't have. They've got 2 guys in the rotation that will be ended up, or at least one of them for sure, will be pitching out of the bullpen.
Yeah. And
who can throw strikes and throw gas.
I think that, kind of goes unnoticed. And a lot of that, like when people ask, does this, team have a weakness in the bullpen? The one thing that we don't know is how are they going to use their starters and who from the rotation is going to go into the pen. And that's one of those things with the Mariners where whoever they decide to pitch out of the bullpen, that's a huge weapon coming in for, let's say, 2 innings, usually a 2-inning stint, could be the middle innings, that bridges the gap. And maybe you don't pitch him every day, but maybe you give him he pitches one, then they get a day or 2 off and he pitches again. Like that's a major factor. And I'm very curious how the Mariners are going to handle that.
Well, yeah, because we can talk about Bryce Miller, who's going to go tomorrow, being a candidate for that, because there's going to be 1 or 2 odd guys out of the rotation if you just going to stick with 3 here. But Miller and Kirby. Mm-hmm. I think Emerson Hancock, what has probably gone unnoticed by a lot of people, is this Emerson Hancock, who they sent down to Tacoma, who was a starter. Hey, we want you to kind of revamp yourself as a bullpen guy. He's come up and he's looked great. Yeah. Minus the first, I think, game. He's looked fantastic. Velocity's up, throwing the ball harder, just looks real comfortable in that role. So something that has been a problem for them this year, injuries and such, not having the type of arms down there during the regular season. Boy, I think once they flip the script in the playoffs, that is going to be something that is going to be a strength of theirs.
Yeah, well, I agree. Wu, Gilbert, Castillo right now, would those be your first 3? I mean, if Kirby put together 2 more starts like he did against the Angels, that might change a little bit. Yeah. But having, any one of those 4, let's just say Miller's, out of the bullpen, and then you're looking at one other guy pitching out of the pen. Like, I don't know how you make that decision, but those are huge weapons. And like you mentioned, Hancock, like he's made it look relatively easy. Mm-hmm. Which it's not easy to do. I think some starters come in and, some of the components of a guy that pitches well out of the bullpen, if you're a starter, you better throw strikes, right? So some of those starters, they're like, oh, well, I'll take an inning or 2 to get my stuff, and get my fastball command and my breakable command. Bullpen guys, you got to come in and be aggressive and get that first out right away. Otherwise, the manager's not going to use you in any type of high leverage situation.
When you start just kind of looking ahead and seeing where these guys are at right now, and you talk about just how complete of a team they are, and of course they're led by Cal Raleigh, who again just tied Mickey Mantle, which is just an incredible record, and it's just a testament to the season that Cal has had. Most likely, they're going to get into the postseason, right? Okay, whether they're going to win the division or get in as a wild card. Does that now stamp him as the MVP?
Well, don't forget he set the record for homers by a catcher. That's a primary position too, right? So he passed Javi Lopez. I would say ordinarily, he would absolutely be that guy. It's just, right now Aaron Judge is on a heater too, and the Yankees are still, fighting, but looking like they're going to get in too. For me personally, it would stamp it for Raleigh. I just know, Judge's, I think last even 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, he homered in the last 3. His numbers are creeping up. He's been setting, records of his own, but it's not like Cal, and I think that to me is gonna. I believe that'll be a differentiator, but I'm really, really curious, as the season ends, how did the last 2 weeks go? Does Judge go into a slump? Or does Cal go into a slump? Like, I think that really, that it's close enough that, the last 2 weeks are probably going to matter.
Sounds like the Tigers avoided a real scare with Tarek Skubal.
Well, I just talked to AJ Hinch today, and the short answer on that is yes. When you get the scan comes back and it's clean, and then he just did a bullpen session yesterday, what he called a normal bullpen session, and he didn't have any issues. They avoided a major issue. The biggest question is going to be, he has an extra day because they had an off day yesterday, so he's pitching Thursday. If that's even relevant enough to have him pitch, like they're playing Cleveland right now, right? I think they have 6 left with Cleveland, but they have 3 here is coming up. Like, I don't know why. If I was their GM, I'd be talking to Terry and saying, "Listen, we're gonna bump you a start. We're gonna bump you a couple days, give you a few more days to, to recover from that." And AJ already knows he's going to have a fight on his hands because Skubal wants to pitch already. But I don't know if there's a team whose postseason hopes ride on one guy more than the Tigers with Skubal. Like, they need him. Like, he's a difference maker. Matching up against pretty much anybody in game 1 and game 5. Let's say. You have the inherent advantage, at least through 6 or 7 innings, and he's a guy that will go 7 easily. If you don't run the pitch count up on him. So I think they got to be really cautious. I'm going to be surprised if he pitches Thursday.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's going to go right down to the wire. This is what you want, in some of these races. You want these things to go down to the wire as much as you possibly can. And I mean, you don't really only have them in 2 divisions right now with the American League West and then the NL West, but it's still fun. And then the playoff jockeying as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There for the postseason. And I think for Seattle, I think at one point, 2 weeks ago, it did not seem like they were going to even sniff getting in. Well, at least I think people out here,
they're in the fringe,
thinking that, oh my God,
here we go.
They're going to blow it. And now all of a sudden, based on what they've done, they put together this unbelievable winning streak, and they're playing great baseball. But that's at home, and they've got to be able to prove it on the road. And I think that's the last step for them. And I think for this organization, Jim, and confidence goes a long way, and how you feel. And I think part of it's mental for them when they go on the road. And I think another thing that they need to do, I think for them as an organization, and I've talked about this a lot, and especially with the NBA. And I just think you need to get through the team above you that's been the bully on the block for a long time. And Houston has been that bully. And I think for this organization with this current core and where they need to go and where they need to be, I'm telling you that they need to be the team that dispatches Houston and puts them away and puts them in the rearview mirror. And I think if they do that, boy, I think the sky's the limit for them, because I think that added confidence boost of them, dispatching them, winning the division, and being the ones who beat them, I think will give them an unreal confidence boost heading into the playoffs.
Sure. Well, it would be nice if they beat them, obviously, in this upcoming series. But as long as they end up winning the division over Houston, no matter how they get there, I agree with you. Like that's happened to me in my career when I was with the Mets and we faced off against the Braves for all these years. We didn't care in 2000 when we ended up going to the World Series. We didn't care that and actually it worked in our favor that we didn't play the Braves, because I'm not so sure we would have beat them, but they got beat before we even played them. So we ended up playing the Cardinals in the LCS. It doesn't matter if the Mariners face off against the Astros in the postseason or not. In fact, you probably would not prefer it if you're a Mariners fan. It just get there. It doesn't, no one's gonna think twice about the Mariners getting the World Series if they didn't have to go through Houston. But winning the division, I think, would go a long way. And I think they're in the driver's seat right now, especially the way the Astros have been trending with all those injuries, like we talked about.
Yeah. Well, it'd be fun. Hopefully, a week from today, when we talk, we'll be talking about a team that handled the Royals.
Yes.
Took at least 2 out of 3 from Houston, has given themselves some breathing room there in the American League West. So fingers crossed, Jim.
Let's hope. Yes.
All right, Jim Duquette. You can listen to him daily. MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 89. He hosts the Power Alley, again, which that airs daily. Also, you can check him out on Sundays with Jim Bowden, former GM as well, the Front Office Show, and Jim's weekly appearance with us is all brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. Cougar owned and operated, 6 amazing locations across the state: Kirkland, Pioneer Square, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. They've got you covered for date night, guys night, ladies night, and large group events. All right, Jim, appreciate it. We'll see you next Tuesday.
All right, talk to you next Tuesday.
Jim Duquette, MLB Network Radio. Again, if you missed any of that, that will be part of the Daily Punch Out podcast. So you can go back and watch and listen to it later and get you all your fix there on what Jim Duquette had to say about the Mariners and their chances for the postseason. All right, we go from baseball now over to the NFL. We'll talk Seahawks, we'll talk national NFL storylines and fantasy football. We do it every Tuesday with Danny Kelly from The Ringer. Our NFL coverage brought to you by Georgetown Brewery.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic-style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
And Danny Kelly joins us again from The Ringer. You can find Danny on social media, Danny B. Kelly, senior staff writer, Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show, fantasyfootball.theringer.com. We talk all things NFL. Our NFL coverage brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Suck on that, DK.
What?
Huh?
What are you talking about?
He didn't do anything. Man, I thought he was going to have like a 10-catch, $150, 2 TDs, and just yelling at the Seahawks sideline.
I thought you were telling me to suck it for a second.
No,
I'm
no.
DK also.
You're DK as well. No. AJ Barner had a better game than DK Metcalf.
Metcalf, he did catch a touchdown, so that he kind of salvaged it, but he had some drops earlier in the game. Didn't really look like he was on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. Jesus, I almost spilled my coffee there.
Oh, man, nothing worse.
But yeah, he definitely did not have a great day. Salvaged it with the TD.
Yeah, he was. It just didn't look. I don't know. Didn't look engaged. I don't know. It just he just didn't have the game that I thought he was going to have, and probably thought that he was going to have. And I think what was interesting about it with them being down, Witherspoon, and even War, you thought, oh my God, especially with Witherspoon. Right. When he was out, I'm like, he is going to destroy us. But did not. Credit to that Seahawks defense. They played great.
Yeah, I'm really getting excited about the Seahawks defense. I think I saw a stat that they are leading the NFL in pressure rate through 2 games, and they're only blitzing. I don't know what it was. It's like they're 30th in the NFL in blitz rate. So they're getting home with 4 guys, which is obviously the ideal thing that you want to do. If you can get pressure, get sacks, get the quarterback off his spot without sending an extra guy. That is ideal. You have more guys in coverage. You have more guys covering more space downfield. And so that theory and that sort of like, prototype of defense is kind of panning out so far. So that's awesome. And I think a lot of it has to do with kind of like the way they have like 5 or 6 guys come up onto the line of scrimmage right before the play. Some of them drop back. Some of them do rush. You never really know where the pressure is coming from. They send guys from different angles, just kind of keep the quarterbacks guessing. So it's a super fun defense to watch. And I love that Mike McDonald, he talks about this in all the pressers. Like, we saw them playing with maximum effort. We really want to coach them up on rallying to the football and giving your full, like, straining every single play. Like, he's obviously coaching this up a lot. And you can kind of see that starting to bear fruit in the Seahawks defense, because they just play really hard. They're really fast around the field. They rally to the football. All the kind of stuff you want to see on defense.
Poor Caleb Johnson. Do you feel bad a little bit for him?
Yeah, it's tough.
Lord, tough. Man.
And he already got, like, they asked Tomlin today if he's going to stay on punt or on kick returns. He's like, not for a while. He's going to have to earn his job back. Yeah, that's like a worst nightmare for a rookie. Making such a, crucial mistake in the fourth quarter. Pretty much cost them the game. Obviously, like, the Seahawks still may have won if they hadn't made that play. By the way, did you think that it was a touchdown?
No, I don't think he recovered it.
Yeah, I was like,
I am convinced that George Holani did not recover that. I've watched it. It's sickening how many times I've watched it. Well,
yeah,
I don't think he ever gets possession of it. And then when he rolls over, the ball pops up.
Yep.
But whatever, they reviewed it and said touchdown, and then Tomlin didn't throw the flag.
I know that was
Tomlin can't throw the flag on that, right?
I don't know. There's too many.
I don't know.
There's too many rules. I feel like I should probably spend about 6 weeks every offseason, like, brushing up on the NFL rule book. There's just so many rules, and they change them every year, which is annoying.
Well, the kickoff one, where they were going through all of it, I was reading. I think it was Condota had the Times reading all those different scenarios, and I'm like, can we just go back to the normal kickoff? You know what? It was so much easier. They kicked it off, and these guys ran down that 1,000,000 miles an hour and killed themselves, and then whatever. I mean, that's football.
But there's still some pretty big collisions in these current kickoff rules. But yeah, I mean, I that was one of those situations where I'm like, I'm not gonna argue with the refs on that one. Feel good about getting that call, because I did not feel like he scored a touchdown on that play.
Yeah, it felt like they got away with one right there.
Yeah, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
The defense is fun to watch, man. This is a really fun defense to watch. I feel like on the offense, it's still kind of a work in progress, and we need to see more consistency from everybody. But there's pieces of the offense that I'm getting more and more excited about. Like, they definitely seem to get the run game going a little bit more in this game. Yeah. Not for Zach Charbonnet. So it was like kind of flip-flop from last week, where Charbonnet looked great. Walker couldn't do anything. This week it was Walker looked great. Charbonnet couldn't do anything. Darnold threw 2 picks. Yeah, it's a work in progress on offense, but I love the defense.
But I think you could tell, at least to me, that I think Kubiak really likes Charbonnet better, because I go back to that final drive, the one where Walker scored. It's all Zach Charbonnet. I'm like, hey, man, he's got like 10 carries for 9 yards.
He had at one point the other cat. He had 14 carries for 5 yards at one point.
The other cat is averaging like 8.5 yards a touch, man.
Yeah,
give him the ball.
I think it's because we study this a lot in like fantasy football, because you want to like know the usage of each player. Like Charbonnet, they trust on third downs, in the 2-minute drill, and in goal line situations. So Charbonnet is just kind of that guy. I think he's, good at pass pro. He's reliable in terms of picking up which blocks he's supposed to do. He's good enough in the passing game to be utilized as like a dump off guy. And then he's a hard charging, downhill runner in the red zone. So that's kind of why he ended up getting more snaps. And he's had more snaps this year than Kenneth Walker, because he's playing in those opportunities. But, I'm as a Kenneth Walker defender till I die. Obviously I loved what I saw from Kenneth Walker in this game. I mean, he had some incredible runs. I think he had 4 runs of 15 yards or 4 runs of 10 yards. I mean, he was creating explosives on the ground. That's exactly what you want to see out of the run game. So great bounce back for him.
Wow. Did you, I don't think you smoke, but if you did smoke, did you want to light one up after Robbie Oots?
Oh, when he took out the two different linebackers. This is real football right here, baby.
God almighty, man.
It's
I'm
pretty
gonna
cool.
tell you.
It's pretty cool that he's a rookie and he's already making such a big impact. You know what I mean? Like he's a late round rookie who comes in and he's just playing this old school position, big ass guy with a mustache.
Just everything. Now, if we can just someone get him a neck roll.
Oh, hell yeah.
Danny, we've completed it. If someone can find him a neck roll, I'm going to find the clip. Okay. We're going to watch it together. Because, God damn it. I love that play. Hold on. I'm the one who recorded it.
You can feel it in your plums. You can feel it in your plums.
I just think it's
just so primal.
Just what makes football, Danny. I mean, look at that. We're watching it together. You guys you're listening to it. I mean, Oots, he's got it. He's down in a 3-point stance. He sees a boom, and then he takes out Queen too. How do you just don't understand how people can't love football and can't love the fullback? I mean,
especially in Pittsburgh.
Oh. I had to have, when I watched it, I had to excuse myself to go outside and just kind of take a deep breath. You know that that picture, that meme of Ben Affleck smoking?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like.
Oh, that's good.
I love the fullback.
Yeah. I mean, he's making a big impact already. It's great. And the Seahawks, like I said, the Seahawks run game looked way better. Obviously, Charbonnet is going to do better in the future. He's not going to, have that many stuffs. It was just like kind of random. But yeah, dude, there's a couple Kenneth Walker runs that make you really like sit up in your seat. There was one where he broke like 3 tackles and then ran a guy over at the end of it. And so, that's obviously what they want their identity to be. It's so funny because I feel like, it's everything Pete Carroll always said. And it's so funny now that Mike McDonald is the coach. It's basically the exact same thing, even though Seahawks fans ran Pete Carroll out of town. But it's like we want to be tough-nosed, physical. You want them to feel like you've played a really hard game. You want them to be, beat up at the end of the game. And that's the identity that they want to have. Man, by the way, I was so excited. Torrey Horton, play action touchdown.
Ooh.
That was exactly what I wanted to see in this game. I will say that, because I want to be fair. I was begging for them to do play action way more in this game.
Yeah.
And, they scored a touchdown. They made a couple big plays on play action, but I want to be fair and admit that some of their worst plays came on those play action bootlegs where they just had pressure immediately. So obviously that too is a work in progress. And I understand that, sometimes the play action just doesn't work. And in a couple of instances in this game, it was kind of catastrophic, how bad it didn't work out. So again, it's a work in progress on offense, but I was very happy to see them in general using play action a lot more.
But they look good. I mean, it was something McDonald talked about after the Niners game, that we've got to do more of that.
Yeah.
And they did it. It was great to see Horton involved early. It was a rebirth of Cooper Kupp. I mean,
he looked great.
Over the middle, he looked more comfortable. Darnold looked very comfortable back there, decisive with the football. And again, he made 2 mistakes in the game, but boy, he made some nice throws. I mean, the one at the end where he's spinning out, hits Barner. That's
that was an incredible play. That was an incredible play. He evaded the rush, and he's got the athleticism to do that. He can run around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Barner, I'm kind of excited about Barner.
I love him.
He looks good out there. He's a big guy. I feel like he's put on weight since he's been with the Seahawks.
We all have, Danny.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you kind of, what is it? You average 1 pound a year or something like that. So you get
some more.
Well, depends how old you are. But yeah, it was good to see him playing well out there. Man, it's exciting that Cooper Kupp can potentially be like a solid number 2 because I think they really need that. So yeah.
I want the old school Patriots like Hernandez Gronk combo minus the
sure,
minus the field stuff, right? Yeah, minus that. But of watching or seeing, and you know what? I don't even know what the numbers are. Maybe you have, maybe you know them. Did they do? How often have we seen Barn and Arroyo on the field together? Because that's what I'd like to see.
I can pull that up 1 second.
Well, look at you. See,
but it is
have you on.
Yeah, it's well, let's see here because I think you can look at how much they're playing 12 personnel, which is 2 tight end set. Right now, the Seahawks are 23rd in the NFL right now, 18% and 12 personnel. They're majoring in. They're 20% of their snaps they're playing 2 running backs. So the Robbie Oots stuff, because I think they count him as a running back, and then 30% of they're playing 11 personnel. So that's 3 receivers. So yeah, they're doing quite a bit of everything. And then there's 16% is in 22 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. So, add 16 with 18, and that's what you got. That's the number of
there's a lot of numbers here.
Like 30 something. I don't want to, 30% in 2 tight end sets. So yeah, they're definitely playing heavy football.
Danny, I just want to see those 2 on the field together. I want to see Barner and Arroyo together.
Yeah,
running up the seam.
They're doing
matchup nightmares, man. They can be.
I wonder. So where are they in the NFL? Look at this. This is classic. You'll love this. 11 personnel, which is 3 receiver set. That's like kind of the main. That's become the main formation in the NFL across the league over the last few years. It's definitely now the pendulum is swinging. The Seahawks are dead last in the NFL.
There's
32%.
People are excited. There's going to be a parade down Fifth Avenue. Screw you, 11 personnel. Yeah, there's going to be T-shirts at the stadium this week. Say no to 11 personnel.
Make football great again.
Make football. Perfect. Yes, there we go. Let's do that.
MFGA.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a fun game. They just looked. I think they looked like the team we were expecting them to see there in week 1. They just were physical and just played that smash mouth type of football. Hey, let's get off the Seahawks here for a second. They got the Saints this week. They've got to win at home. They cannot kick this game.
God,
they've been terrible at home. What are they? 3-7 under McDonald, and what is he? 8-1 on the road. So whatever he's doing on the road, do it at home. They should just fly to another city on Friday, and then stay there and fly back like Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon.
Right. They have to be their body on East Coast time.
Yeah, that's what they should do, folks. We're just gonna drive to Newfoundland, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna land at Boeing. Well, whatever. Just figure it out, because they're heavy favorites this week against I don't know. Doesn't seem to be a very good Saints football team, although they took the Niners down.
They're frisky. They're frisky. They're not good. They're frisky.
Okay. Injuries though, God, there's been a lot of quarterback injuries. I'm probably missing someone. Burrow, McCarthy, Fields,
Jaden Daniels,
concussion, right?
No, he has a knee injury. It's unclear if he's going to miss games right now, but I bet he will.
Goodness, man.
It's tough, man. So you got Burrow, Fields, McCarthy, and Purdy.
Oh, I forgot about Brock Purdy because I'm going to get to Purdy in a second. Yeah, that's right.
So 5 starters down within 2 weeks. Two superstar quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow, which sucks. So yeah, it's definitely tough. There's a lot of attrition happening early on. We're going to have some of these matchups next week, Puck, are disgusting. Like we've got let me look at this. There's just like backup quarterbacks against backup quarterbacks, and so many different.
The one you've got Jake Browning versus isn't it Jake Browning versus who the Bengals playing?
Jake Browning versus Carson Wentz, the all-time matchup we've been looking for.
It's great.
So that's gonna be ugly. Let's see. I'm trying to remember if there's any more backup versus backup. Maybe not, but yeah, it's gonna be a pretty gross slate this week. I think that's the only one actually, so that's good.
Well, that's going to be a doozy. I'm going to take the under in that one.
It's going to start low.
Right now it's 42.5. It's not the lowest one on the board, but it's low. But give me 42.5. Yeah, lots of injuries there in the quarterback situation. Hey, speaking of quarterbacks, Geno had a great game. It was good timing of that interview that he did where he trashed the Seahawks organization and said, now I'm in a place where I'm wanted. And then he came out and he looked great and with his new team.
It was so funny. Yeah, it's
awful.
Funny. The Seahawks fandom or whatever, the ongoing battle between Geno lovers and Geno haters. It was a roller coaster this weekend. Darnold throwing 2 picks. The Geno supporters having a nice day, and then Monday night was rough.
Oh,
Very rough for Geno, to the point where I'm like kind of worried about him. So yeah, we'll see how this goes going forward. But man, he just needs to take it down a notch. He's too aggressive. I do think the Chargers defense is really good, for the record, but man, just live to play another down. Don't force it into triple coverage downfield in the end zone or whatever.
Hey, a lot of people are guilty of this, and so it's not just a Geno Smith problem. I mean, this is a society problem. He is way too concerned with what people think about him.
Yeah,
he just is. He's too active on social media,
too online,
and with all those cryptic crap that he puts out, and he does interviews like this. He's just too concerned with other people. And I don't know. It's just a thing for him. And again, he's not the only one. There's a lot of people out there like that. But I would just tell him to put it all away.
Log off.
Go play football and have fun. He's a hell. Here's the thing. He's already won. Mm-hmm. He's a great success story.
Mm-hmm.
He was an afterthought, thrown away in this league, came back, resurrected his career, got paid. I mean, he's won.
This is not how these guys are wired, Puckett. It's like the old Michael Jordan thing from The Last Dance or whatever. It's like he has to manufacture the chip on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I think he still has a reason to have a chip on his shoulder in terms of like what happened, the way that the Seahawks relationship ended and everything. But yeah, I agree with you. He probably should log off, go touch grass, just go play football. Probably be better off. We could probably all say that about our lives.
Sure. Right now, I'm going to give you the odds for NFL MVP. Plus 7,500 right now. The current odds for Danny Dimes.
Yeah.
Daniel Bleepin' Jones.
Indiana Jones.
There's a lot of people, that have been very high on him.
Mm-hmm.
And have always thought that, hey, put in the right situation with the right team and the right coaches. And we've probably discussed this before. I think that's true for all quarterbacks.
Right.
It's about where you go.
Right.
And boy, it looks like this has been a great situation for him. He looked fantastic.
I'm so dubious, but I'm also open to the idea that maybe he did finally turn a corner. This is going to have like a Sam Darnold-esque season from last year. Because I'm a strong believer that development is not linear.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of injuries in his career that really, I think, fucking derailed him in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like he had a neck injury. It's amazing that he's still in the league. And so, yeah, I think I've kind of been a hater. I've definitely been a hater for Daniel Jones going back all the way to like when he was drafted. But, it is very important to have a structure, a system, a really strong relationship with your coach. And in this case, a decent offensive line, it seems like, and a really pretty good skill position group. I mean, the Colts have quietly been accumulating some really good talent. Michael Pittman, I think, is a good player. Mm-hmm. Josh Downs, very underrated middle of the field player. You got Alec Pierce, who's one of the best deep ball receivers in the NFL. He's kind of a one-trick pony, but he's very good at that one thing. You have one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best running back in the NFL, quietly, in Jonathan Taylor. So, he's got this support system around him, and I think the offense suits him really well in terms of just like the RPO game that they do, simplifying some of the things that they're asking him to do too much. And he's a pretty good athlete, so he's like contributing to the run game. He's already scored 3 rushing touchdowns. I think they're all sneaks, but still, yeah. I mean, it's a very advantageous situation for him. I'm kind of waiting for him to turn back into a pumpkin here, but and we'll see because they're playing the Titans, I think, this week, who have a very strong front. You could have said that about the Broncos, and they won in that game. So I'm very impressed with that game against the Broncos because that's a good defense they played.
And then another quarterback who, again, we talk about just finding themselves in the right situation, the right coach, and the pieces around him would be Mac Jones. I mean, Mac Jones gets drafted to a team that just they had a defensive coordinator, I think, was calling his plays, right? Didn't Matt Patricia call plays?
Is that right? Yeah. It was one year they did that. It was like Bill Belichick couldn't find any other people that wanted to coach with him anymore, or vice versa. He didn't have anyone he wanted. It was like he just recycling guys and putting them at new positions or new coaching jobs. Yeah, I mean, that's another perfect example of,
and he played great.
There's a million of them like guys landing in situations that just don't really work out.
And this is a guy that Shanahan apparently, I was talking Mike Garafolo told me the story last week that he's always been. There's a conflict that sounds like he wanted to draft him.
Yep.
And the GM didn't want to draft him.
Yep.
So they went a different direction.
Talked him into Trey Lance.
Dude,
that whole thing, I stand by. That's like my take at the time, and it remains today. Obviously, I think it aged well. My take did. You absolutely don't trade up there unless you have full conviction on one specific player. They made it sound like they traded up just to get in a position to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
And they didn't have like full conviction on any of these guys. They're like, yeah, let's trade up to get to number whatever it was, 2 or 3. And then we can figure out who we want to take. To me, that's insanity. Why would you do that? Unless you really, really love a guy and have incredible conviction that he is the savior for your franchise. It just makes me so mad. I don't understand how they did that.
So I was thinking about it. I was watching the highlights and just seeing, Mac Jones is smiling. He's throwing good passes. I mean, he just looks the part.
Body language is good. Yeah.
What if he outplays Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
If he's better in that system, what do they do?
They probably play. I mean, look, they've made these hard decisions in the past. I remember when, what was it? They had Trey Lance, Jimmy G, I think, and then Brock Purdy. That was their depth chart or whatever. And there was an interview with Shanahan where he said essentially I think the GM Lynch asked him how things are going at practice. He's like, well, our third quarterback's our best guy. So there's that. And he was talking about Purdy. And ultimately they ended up rolling with Purdy and he looked great. Yep. I think it's like with Shanahan and his scheme in particular among all coaches and, scheme lords or whatever, he kind of wants his quarterback to be the avatar for him and just like do what he wants them to do and throw the ball to the places that he's like draws it up kind of. And that's why Brock Purdy's really good, I think, is because he just sees, he sees the design of the play and executes it. Yeah. And, I think there's a chance that Mac Jones could be that type of guy for Shanahan too. And Shanahan has a long history of turning mediocre quarterbacks into what appear to be very good quarterbacks. And so, it's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of that happening right now because I think with Mac Jones coming in for Purdy, if Mac Jones keeps balling out, that'll be interesting. I think they still will go back to Purdy, but it's going to make it interesting. Carson Wentz filling in for JJ McCarthy for a month. Imagine the storylines we're going to get if Carson Wentz plays well.
Yeah.
And Kevin O'Connell has a long history of, being the type of like Shanahan type of guy, like turning guys into high functioning quarterbacks in his scheme. Obviously there's a really good system there. So there's a handful of these situations where it's going to be like kind of interesting to see how these offenses run and if it's going to create difficult decisions. I keep saying like, man, if Caleb Williams gets hurt and they go to Tyson Bagent and he plays well in the Ben Johnson system, I think that would be like a really interesting situation to monitor because like, what do they do there? There's a lot of that stuff in the NFL right now.
All right. I'm going to last thing for you. What of these 0-2 teams right now, who still has a shot, but who's done? We've got the Jets, Dolphins, Browns, Texans, Titans, Chiefs, Giants, Bears, Panthers, and Saints.
I mean, obviously the Chiefs.
They're the only one.
They're
the only one.
They've got to be the only one.
I mean, the Browns aren't going to do anything.
The Texans are a good team.
Jets. The Texans, maybe the Texans.
The Texans are a good team, I think. They got to get their shit together, and I think they're kind of just a messy team right now. The offense is really disjointed, but I think they have talent. I'm still a CJ Stroud fan, and they have an elite defense. So I think the Texans are probably among those teams, other than the Chiefs, the most likely to like get out of the cellar, win the division, go to the playoffs.
All right. There it is right there from Danny Kelly. Danny Kelly, you can follow him on social media, Danny B. Kelly, The Ringer, senior staff writer, Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show, fantasyfootball.theringer.com. All things NFL brought to you by Georgetown Beer. Tell everyone where they can listen to you and watch you throughout the week, sir.
Check out the Ringer Fantasy Football Show on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. We do video on Spotify and on YouTube. Go check out our YouTube channel if you're a big YouTube person. yeah, because we put everything out there as well.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful week of football, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
There he is, Danny Kelly. And again, if you missed any of Danny Kelly's appearance, I'll be part of the Daily Puck Drop, both on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, we go from the NFL to college football. We've got 2 rivalry games coming up this week with point spreads I have never in my life have ever seen. We talk college football every single week with John Canzano. He's brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. Of course, you can watch or listen to him on the Bald-Faced Truth radio station down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 The Game. But here, more importantly, you can read him at johncanzano.com. And again, he's brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. Cougar owned and operated, 6 amazing locations across the state of Washington: Kirkland, Pioneer Square, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. They've got you covered, everything from date night to a large group events. So go check them out at Flat Stick Pub, flatstickpub.com. Well, if they were at Flat Stick Pub last week, John, I wonder if they left at halftime watching the North Texas Mean Green run all over the Washington State Cougars. That was, I've said it this week, and I maintain it was, to me, the worst loss in program history.
Yeah, it was demoralizing, and the entire Pac-2, right, had a tough time in Texas. It was not pretty. I think the combined score was about 1,000,000 to 14, and just I think another example of what, like, you have to follow the money, right? And you have to. Money is one thing, and you're watching these tiers in college football sort of separate themselves when it comes to the money. But then beyond that, if you have a coaching change, it takes you 2+ seasons, I think, really to kind of pull out of that. We're watching Brett Brennan at Arizona, Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, Jed Fish at Washington. That whole first year is just a slog because you've lost so much in the transfer portal. But what a glaring indictment, and maybe a validation moment for North Texas, which isn't that far away from Texas State. Do you start thinking about taking North Texas if you're the Pac-12?
Yeah, maybe. Well, Eric Morris had the comment, I think, back in I think it was over the summer, who was the coach at North Texas, who was the one-time OC at Washington State, about the Pac-12. He goes, well, they didn't get the invite. They were upset about it. Goes, well, it's not the Pac-12. It's just a glorified Mountain West. So obviously he had some thoughts leading up to that game, and he just hammered them. I mean, that was a bad loss. Do you think, and we'll get to Oregon State in a second, but for both, do you think this is the new norm now for both these schools?
I'm not ready to say that, because I think at Oregon State with Trent Bray, you're seeing a guy who's just learning to be a coach, who obviously they've lost the validation of being in the traditional Pac-12, and they're trying to make it work. But they've been in this wasteland, this no man's land, for 2 years now. This is the second season where they've operated as the table for two, or the Pac-2. And so I think it's going to take a little bit of time before you can get into what is the new world Pac-12 to see some separation. Can they separate themselves from the Mountain West further? Can they separate from the American as a group with Boise State and San Diego State in there? But if you look at the money, it underscores why this media rights deal that is coming down the pipeline is so vital, because if you don't have the money to compete, you won't find any traction, and it's demoralizing. And I know why fans are saying, like, I heard a bunch of fans who are saying, this is the new norm, this is demoralizing. Give it a bigger sample size, because even Arizona last year with Brett Brennan, they were ready to fire that guy. Now, he's doing well. Cal was in a bad position. They've figured some things out. I think there's a lot of moving parts still. I still think there's opportunities for these teams to kind of get their feet underneath them.
Do you think Bray survives? There seems to be a lot of heat on him. And in fact, there was a columnist down there and I want to ask you about that, who wrote a story, wrote a column saying that they should remove him. But what is the tenor down there surrounding him?
It's a little different than Deshaun Foster. I mean, there's some parallels because they're both alums of their university who played at their university. They were the easy solution when you were left in a lurch. Chip Kelly leaves, Jonathan Smith leaves. You just turn to the guy that fans love and you put him in there. So there's parallels there. But in Bray's case, I think it's a little different. Like, not only is he learning to be, a first-time head coach, but, the massive turnover, the fact that, you've got a university that is largely preoccupied with trying to build the new world Pac-12. You're not UCLA. You're not in the Big Ten up against all these other powers. But so I think Trent Bray is going to get a little more patience from Scott Barnes, his athletic director. Also, they owe him $3.6 million if they fire him this year. I don't think Oregon State, in a year where, they're asking the state legislature for $5 million, $10 million, I don't think they're going to go and fire a football coach and be like, hey, we're using that money to go pay off our coach. So there's some bad optics there. I also think it's really easy where, when you see, a university that's down, it's really easy to kick them in the teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very easy to be like, oh, they're terrible. Look at where they are. There are winnable games coming down the pipeline. Maybe Cal's just going to be that good. Maybe Texas Tech, they never beat Texas Tech given the disparity in funding. But the Fresno State game was the game where I really looked at it and went, gosh, they look disorganized. They couldn't snap the ball. They've got to fix that stuff. That was like peewee football, watching them try to snap a football on a punt. So Trent Bray, they're gonna lose to Oregon badly. How merciful is Dan Lanning? That is the only question. And then it becomes Houston probably beats them, so they're 0-5. Then it's this Tulsa, Appalachian State, Lafayette, the two games with Washington State. There's some wins coming later in the year. The schedule was front loaded. I think he's going to get a little patience, but I start to think about him losing the locker room if they're at 0-6, because I think at that point, you've got some games that we never thought he would win. I did not think he would beat Texas Tech or Oregon. So I think it's a little unfair to come out right now in the middle of that and be like, he's got to go. He must go, because Vince Lombardi's not winning that game with Oregon State's roster.
I want to get to Jimmy Rogers in a quick second too. How do you think, I've seen the video, that he handled himself in the press conference? He was being, I guess you could say, grilled. There was some tough questions that he was being asked by a columnist for the Oregonian, your former stop. I thought he handled it well. I thought the questions were fair except for the one at the end.
Yeah.
I thought the one at the end, I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it. I don't know if it was childish or immature. I thought it was, I couldn't imagine asking a coach, do you like football? Do you like coaching? That was the question.
Do you like being a head coach? Yeah.
Do you like being a head coach? What was he trying, I guess, to get? Because what was he going to say? No, I don't like doing it. Yeah. It's just, I'm kind of good at it, so I want to do it.
Well, the fair way to ask that question would have been, hey, you've been a coordinator and you weren't a coordinator for that long. You are a ball coach. And I get the impression Trent Bray, he obviously wanted to roll his sleeves up. He wanted to be the defensive coordinator. I think the question was, like, are you comfortable being a head coach, or would you rather just coach a position group and be a coordinator? That's kind of where I think the question was pointed. Mm-hmm. But they weren't beating Texas Tech. You look at the disparity in investment in football at Texas Tech and Oregon this week, and you are upside down in this game, much in the same way the FCS schools are when they're playing a payday game, right? It is a big climb to go on the road in these 2 weeks and try to win these games. So I think it's really easy to come out and kick the dog when you know the dog's down, when you know the dog can't punch back. There are some things out there that I think in Trent Bray's defense he would never bring up. I mean, they lost so much in the portal. They lost so much in the roster. They've been sloppy. I think it's fair to question the sloppy play and sort of the disorganization. But at the end of the year, are we going to look back and go, gosh, Cal could make the college football playoff with their schedule. Like, they may play in the ACC title game. They've got a great quarterback. Texas Tech, Utah and Texas Tech, I think, are the best two teams in the Big 12. And then Oregon, that's a playoff team. And so what are we talking about? The difference between 1-3 and 0-4? I mean, it's at the end of this, I think you have to let Trent Bray coach a little bit more, see a larger sample size. It may prove that he's just not a head coach, but I don't think you can tell that by watching them compete in Lubbock, Texas, and compete against Oregon.
You mentioned an FCS, right? That level of talent. We've seen the disparity in some of these scores, that bigger than we've seen in the past. It seems like, just based on, there's just more talent now being spread out with the FBS, and guys are leaving the FCS and moving up, or whatever it may be. But I worry, and I look at Jimmy Rogers as he makes this transition from that level to this level. He took a lot of guys from his former stop, and I wonder, did he miscalculate that jump for those guys to this level of football?
I don't think he miscalculated. I think he looked at what Curt Cignetti did at Indiana, and he said, here's a guy who brought his guys with him, culture keepers. He was comfortable with that group. They knew his system. And so when you are coming into a program and you've got 75 new faces on your roster, you'd like to look around and see 25 or 30 guys who at least know what you mean when you're saying, using terminology and saying things. It's not going to help you when you're in over your head at North Texas or even maybe in this Apple Cup game, but I think it will help you sort of get traction. And I'll go back to like when Chip Kelly went to the NFL, he tried to bring some guys like Kiko Alonso and Kenyon Barner with him to Philadelphia, and he was desperate to kind of get guys in the locker room that would understand what he was trying to do. And I talked to Kenyon Barner about that, and I said, what was Chip trying to do there? And he says he was trying to get culture, but he says he's getting undermined by a bunch of grown men in that locker room who weren't willing to do the things that college kids wanted to do. And so I think it was Rodgers' attempt to create continuity. I think the blueprint was there with Cignetti coming to Indiana and having such success, but there is a gap in talent. And I specifically am looking at the state of Texas. It just looks to me like Texas State, North Texas, Texas Tech, Houston. There's just, I think they're retaining more Texas kids than they had in prior years, maybe with the NIL budget and some of the schools moving up in conferences. But those schools look fierce.
All right, I've been watching the Apple Cup for as long as I can remember, in the Civil War as well, and maybe someone can cite spreads like this. I can't remember last time I've seen two spreads like this. The Apple Cup, Washington is favored by 3 touchdowns, 20.5 points. In the Civil War, it's 34.5. John,
yeah,
I mean these have the opportunities this week to be real bloodbaths.
I like both of the favorites to cover. I just think it's going to be ugly. And I think the potential for Washington to lay it on Washington State is even greater, even on the road. There just seems to be something stewing from last year when Washington State won that game and celebrated the way they celebrated after the game. And you could just tell there's some bad feelings at Washington about how that went, because Washington State kicked them in the teeth and won that game. That was the highlight of the season, I think, for Washington State fans. There was a lot of dancing that went on, justifiably so, given what happened. But I think there's some lingering bad feelings. And then I look over at Oregon, and, Oregon's got Penn State in a week. Oregon wants to stay healthy. I wonder how much Oregon's going to play their guys. And Dan Lanning, I don't think he's here to embarrass Oregon State. They're trying to figure out, how to get the Civil War series continued in 2027 and 2028. They're going to skip a year in 26. So I don't think Oregon's out there going to try to embarrass Oregon State, but I don't see how Oregon State stays within 35, even with that. I think this one to me has like 49-7, written all over it at Oregon's case. And I think that Washington game could get, that Washington State game could get really ugly if the feelings are the way that I think they are. I mean, Jed Fish is trying to bring up Jaden Delore. He's bringing up old stuff. He's bringing up old shit here, Puck. Like I think he's reaching for every possible motivating factor. But to me, it's like play the post-game ceremony and the John Mateer getting carried off like it was a movie at the end of that thing, holding the trophy. It was a catharsis for Washington State fans last season.
Yeah, I think the only hope is, you mentioned Oregon looking past Oregon State because they got Penn State.
Yeah.
The only hope is that Washington, how healthy do they want to be, and what do they want to not show on film, because they have Ohio State the next week. Yeah.
2 big games, 2 huge games, and health is a priority. And, Oregon's not saying it, but Oregon has some guys banged up. And I just wonder how much Dan Lanning's going to play those guys. And I also think, I just don't think they're trying. I don't think Oregon's looking to embarrass Oregon State. It's a very delicate relationship. I think Washington State winning that game last year changes the whole calculus for the Apple Cup. I think Washington is probably coming in there going, we don't just want to win. We need to make a statement here. Maybe that changes in a year. Yeah. But yeah, the look past factor is the one question you have to have.
I think Jed Fish comes out very first play and runs the speed option with Damon Williams.
Should.
And be like, this is a different year. This is not Will Rogers running this offense. Where does – I do not feel bad for this school. To me, they were the final nail, UCLA. I wish very bad things, despite my daughter wants to go to school there. But they're a mess.
Yeah.
That program, everything is a mess, and it is sad in a way because I grew up, watching Terry Donahue, and those were great teams. It was a great football program. They got great uniforms and all of it. Just it's beautiful. But where do they go from here? Who is attracted to that job when they do not care, it looks like, about football?
Yeah, and you mentioned it. You go back to Terry Donahue, right? So you're talking about getting through Jim Mora. You're talking about Neuheisel under 500. You're talking about Carl Durrell. You're going through some guys. It's been a while since they won. And so you can't, for people who want to pin this on Chip Kelly recognized they couldn't win. That was part of it. But UCLA hasn't won with consistency in football since Donahue. And you go and look at this and you say, okay, are they going to be comfortable being a basketball school in a football world? I don't think they are. I talked to Martin Jarmon, the AD at UCLA, shortly after he promoted Deshaun Foster. And I asked him, I said, if Jonathan Smith had been available, would you have looked at him? And he said, absolutely. He goes, but I think if he were available, he'd have ended up at Washington. And so I think Jonathan Smith is someone that UCLA would want to talk to because he's got proof of performance. He has done more with less. He's won places that haven't had great success, like Oregon State. The question is, can UCLA sell a guy like that on the idea that this is a better job? Is UCLA a better job than Michigan State in the Big Ten? Now, Jonathan Smith's a Southern California kid. He was a USC fan growing up. I was at the Coliseum one day with Smith, and he was down on the field before Oregon State was playing USC, and he came over and he pointed up at the stands, Puck, and he showed me the seat he sat in. So I think if Lincoln Riley leaves USC, Jonathan Smith would be like, hey, I want that job. Like that would be a job he'd be hot after with his agent. So UCLA's got to change the thinking. I hated that Jarmon came out on his Sunday news conference and said, we're going to do this with a committee. We need another committee. Let's have a meeting about a meeting. Like that's the most bullshit thing that you could ever do as an AD, to come out and be like, if you're the AD, the committee is you. Like, go hire somebody you believe in that can win. Conference with your key boosters, make them feel like they have a voice in this thing, but you better hire somebody that you think can win, because it's you're going to end up walking if you don't. And Chip Kelly did not get along with Martin Jarmon, and Deshaun Foster was a terrible hire. Yeah, you saw it at that news conference. Remember the first news conference?
Sure.
He walked up there. He wasn't prepared. He'd never done it. It wasn't his fault. He got put into a job. It's like putting you in the Nutcracker. Go do it, Puck.
Hey, have you ever seen me dance?
Come on. So at the end of this, if you're Martin Jarmon, if you're really going to lean on a committee, you're not going to get the right person. So, good luck to you. I think, if Jarmon's contract wasn't so fat, he's got a big buyout. I think he would be in real trouble here. But I think, you've got the Wasserman family, you got Troy Aikman, you have some very interested people at UCLA who would probably love to take that AG job and take over the decision-making, because it has not been good. And I don't have any confidence that they're going to get this right. So if I'm UCLA, I try to sell Will Stein, the Oregon offensive coordinator, on the gig, but he might be able to do better. He might look at it and go, I think I can do a little better. I don't know. And I've talked to Jonathan Smith, and beyond that, I mean, there's some other candidates, sure, but change. If you just insert a new person there and you don't prioritize football, Rick Neuheisel will tell you they weren't paying for enough things at UCLA. He was paying for the receivers to have gloves and the DBs to have gloves out of his own pocket.
Yeah. Terry Donahue last coached in 1995.
Yeah.
How long ago they've been relevant.
Yeah.
1995. It's amazing. All right. When do your picks come out, and how are you doing on your picks?
Yeah, I was 8-3 against the spread this last week. I had a really good week, and I'm looking to keep that going. So
I know what you're doing
Thursday at johncanzano.com.
Okay, I know what you're doing in the UW game and in the Oregon game.
I could change my mind between now and then, but right now I'm really leaning hard towards the favorites, because I just think I just don't think those two Pac-2 schools are ready right now to compete on that level.
Yeah, and we'll see what he does. It's never a good idea when you're in the fourth week, right? In the fourth week of the season, and you're having a quarterback competition.
Yeah, not great.
Not good.
Quarterback,
not good
right? I mean, you don't have an idea. But Oregon State, did you see him snap the ball and punts last week? Like, They lined the punter up 7 yards deep, and they did kind of a toss between the legs, and the punter kicked it like on one step. I went to a 8th grade football game and saw that over the weekend. They were snapping the ball regular, and I was like, "Get that guy out at Oregon State."
I got a 12-year-old who was in the backyard last night working on it. Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. I told him, I said, you want to play football in high school right away?
Yep.
Be a long snapper.
Yep.
Right away. So, all right. We can find all of your work, johncanzano.com. You usually got something cooking that right when I hang up with you.
Yeah. You want to know what it is today?
Comes out like an hour later.
You want to know what it is today?
Yeah.
Right now, if you go online right now, Tom Dundon bought the Blazers for, he's buying the Blazers for $4.25 billion.
Yeah, chump change.
He doesn't have $4.25 billion, but I constructed how he came up with the money and the investors, and how do you get to $4.25 billion if you're not that kind of billionaire? So that's there now.
Okay.
Little Easter egg for you.
Go read it, johncanzano.com. Follow him on social media, John Canzano BFT. If you can listen to his radio show as well down there in Portland, 750, the game from 3 to 6 p.m. He joins us every Tuesday, brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. All right, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Puck.
Here is John Canzano from johncanzano.com. You want to spend $5 or $6 a month, and you want to read some quality journalism? That guy right there, johncanzano.com, joins us every Tuesday here on the Daily Puck Drop and Puck Sports. In case you missed any of that, that will be podcast up later on all podcast platforms and up on YouTube. Would love having John on every single week. All right, before we wrap up the show, we end every Daily Puck Drop with Hey, What the Puck, which is brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. They are locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. Phone number, give them a call. Call up Trent, my guy, 206-817-8917, and visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Patience is a hard thing in sports, and it leads me to the conversation we had with John and with the Old Crimson podcast, which will come out later this afternoon, by the way, for Puck's Posse members. So if you want a sneak preview, an early watch and listen to the Old Crimson podcast, sign up to become a Puck's Posse member, and you will get it on Tuesday. If you don't want to sign up, that's fine. No harm, no foul. It will come out tomorrow. We'll play it during the Daily Puck Drop. But we talked about patience, and I think that there's patience, for Washington State fans and patience for Oregon State fans. And I don't want to put myself in the shoes of Oregon State fans. I understand we're going through a very similar journey right now. Trent Bray, I thought, handled himself well in a press conference, asked some very pointed questions by a columnist who wrote a column, and that's their job, to write a column, and suggested they need to move on and fire him. You heard Canzano talk right there. They owe him $3.6 million. They can't afford to fire him unless they get the guy from, what is it, a NVIDIA, him to pay it off, then they can do it. And I think bring it back to the Cougs and Jimmy Rogers, I have maintained that I think was the worst loss in program history. That doesn't mean I don't think Jimmy Rogers is a good football coach, nor do I think he can't be a good football coach. I sat and watched all of Jimmy Rogers' press conference from Monday. There's a lot that I like about him. I think he has the right approach to how to coach football. I think he coaches the right way. I think he says the right things. And I think his process of how he wants his football team to act and look is the right way. I thought there was going to be some bumps and bruises this year. You're transitioning to especially offensively, to something that is just does not look like what you've played in the last decade or so. So I thought it'd be tough. I didn't know if it'd be this tough. I think the physicality that he wants to play with is not there. So they have to adjust. I think part of that decision to go with Potter was because he probably throws of all the quarterbacks is the best pure passer. And so I think he even recognized when they were in camp that we're going to have to throw it more than we've ever thrown it. And we're going to have to lean into that as much as possible. That's probably why they let him to go with Potter. But then when Potter can't make some necessary reads and makes mistakes in that passing game, now it becomes, okay, well, if we throw it a lot, we're going to put the ball up in harm's way. I think that they will move on to Zevi Eckhouse. I don't know what happened over the summer. We weren't there. One thing I would question, even though I wasn't there, how he was not the number 2 quarterback. Julian Duggar is just not – there's just nothing there of why, and I'd like to know what he did in practice. There was nothing that I ever heard or read in practice from people that were there that wowed anyone with his arm. Yes, his athleticism and his legs, but not his arm. But patience is key, I think, for a lot of Washington State fans this year. And it's hard to have patience, though. In a brand new conference, it's not the same. College football isn't the same. You're watching Utah and all these other schools in Oregon and Washington being these different conferences, and Washington State and Oregon State are just kind of left out here on their own right now. And then they will enter a new conference next year, but which will just be, again, the Mountain West just rebranded as the Pac-12. So it's hard. It is hard to be patient because these last 2 years have not been normal, and they're going to take a lot of lumps coming up here soon. Potentially a big lump this weekend against Washington. They head out on the road, and it is a brutal, and I mean brutal, 3-game stretch for this team after they face Washington, at Colorado State, at Ole Miss, at Virginia. I mean, that could get nasty real quick. But I would practice patience. Yes, did he bring over some of his players that maybe they aren't ready for this level? I don't know. But, he wanted to try and change a culture and try to get his vision for that culture. But right now, he can't play the way he wants to play because he just doesn't have all the necessary pieces to do it. I do think in time his vision will take place, and I do believe he's going about the right way. But people need to understand it ain't going to look pretty here this year. That's for sure. It will not look pretty. I think the one thing that I am alarmed or concerned about is how sloppy they've been. That to me concerns me a lot. They've been really sloppy with penalties, getting on and off the field. Hopefully that changes this week against Washington in the Apple Cup. I do believe they'll play a lot better. I don't think you're going to see the team against North Texas. I think you're going to see the team that played against San Diego State. That version of that team. Will it mean a win? I don't know. It's a long battle for them to beat that team, how talented they are on offense, but I don't think that they will look like they did against North Texas. All right, that's Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Give them a call if you have any damages to your commercial or residential property, 206-817-8917. Visit them at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening to today's show. Thank you to our sponsors, Limbeck Lumber, Flatstick Pub, Georgetown Brewery. Check out their new tavern beer, by the way, at georgetownbeer.com, and also Restoration One. If you missed any of today's show, of course, you can catch everything up on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Just search Puck Sports. The Daily Puck Drop is there, and you can find additional shows and content at pucksports.com. When you're there, you can sign up to become a member of the Pucks Posse, which gives you you support everything that we do here at Puck Sports, and also you get bonus shows every single week. Go visit pucksports.com for more. All right, that's it for us here on a Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Wednesday's show, which will have Old Crimson, myself and Paul Sorensen and Jim Moore yelling at each other, Ryan Divish, our visit with Divish, and what else we got tomorrow? Rob Staten tomorrow. Oh, and Jim Moore and I are going to sit down and talk to Bud Withers. Bud Withers, who's, speaking of the Apple Cup, has a brand new book out talking about the Apple Cup. So the three of us will talk about his new book that has come out, and also the Apple Cup and just the state of college football, with one of the nicest people I've ever met in Bud Withers. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!